Better Call Saul, Kim Wexler. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You join me for another analysis of a key character from the Breaking Bad universe. Remember, do share this video to others who might be interested in the breakdown and give it a few watches to boost its profile. Kim Wexler, portrayed by Rhea Seehorn in Better Call Saul, emerges as one of the most complex and compelling characters in the Breaking Bad universe. Introduced as a competent and ethical lawyer at Hamlin, McGill, HHM, Kim's arc spans from a stabilizing force in Jimmy McGill's life to a willing participant in his increasingly unethical schemes, culminating in profound personal and moral consequences. Her psychological profile is multifaceted, blending ambition, loyalty, thrill-seeking tendency that draws her into moral ambiguity. Born on February the 13th, 1968 in Red Cloud, Nebraska, Kim's upbringing in poverty with a neglectful alcoholic mother who involved her in petty theft, as revealed in flashbacks like Axe and Grind, could be said to shape self-reliance and aversion to vulnerability. Or it might be revealed as a lack of control environment and the potential that her mother might have been a narcissist. Throughout Better Call Saul, Kim's decisions reflect a tension, which shows between an innate sense of justice, is that the empathic trait, or one driven by narcissism as a means of asserting control over people, evident in her pro bono work in defense of underdogs, and a growing attraction to the adrenaline of rule-breaking, influenced heavily by her relationship with Jimmy. Is it the case that she has initial moral integrity, which erodes under the allure of power and excitement? Or is it the case that this was just an image that was generated and her true behaviours come to the fore as a consequence of her involvement with Jimmy McGill's cons? Kim's early portrayal emphasises her as a foil to Jimmy's chaos, diligent, principled and career-focused. In Mayo, she navigates the Kettleman case with professionalism, advising Jimmy against his impulsive tactics while showing genuine concern for his safety after his desert ordeal. Yet subtle hints of her complexity appear early. She shares cigarettes with Jimmy in the HHM parking garage, symbolising their intimate bond and her willingness to bend minor rules. As the series progresses, her involvement deepens, from covering for Jimmy's fraud in Cobbler to masterminding an elaborate scam against Howard Hamlin in seasons 5 and 6, which ends in tragedy. This evolution raises questions about her underlying psychological drivers. Is her ambition narcissistic? Does her lack of remorse in certain moments suggest psychopathic tendencies? By examining her actions, relationships, and internal conflicts, we can discern a profile rooted in environmental influences, relational dynamics, and personal agency. Or is it clinical pathology? Kim Wexler's psychological foundation is deeply tied to her impoverished Nebraska childhood, marked by instability and exposure to criminality. In a pivotal flashback in Axe and Grind, a young Kim is caught shoplifting earrings and a necklace, only for her mother to reveal she had stolen them herself, laughing off the incident and driving drunk with Kim in the car. The scene illustrates early modelling of deceit and thrill in rule-breaking, which Kim internalizes. But she appears to choose a path of hard work and legitimacy. Her mother's neglect appears to foster a fierce independence. Kim moves to Albuquerque alone, works in HHM's mailroom, and earns her law degree on the firm's dime, creating a debt of gratitude that then, later, becomes resentment. Personality-wise, Kim is characterized by high conscientiousness, intelligence, and emotional resilience. She appears as highly assertive, organized, practical, loyal. In Hero, she confronts Howard Hamlin about punishing her for Jimmy's billboard stunt, demonstrating assertiveness without aggression. Her ponytail, often tight during focused work and loose in moments of stress, perhaps symbolizes her internal control mechanisms, a visual cue for her anxiety management. Psychological analyses point to this might being reaction formation, where Kim overcompensates for chaotic urges by adhering strictly to rules early on. Ambition drives Kim, but is it grounded in merit or entitlement? She builds her career from the ground up, landing major clients like Mesa Verde through diligence, as seen in Switch, where she pitches successfully despite Howard's interference. She prioritizes pro bono cases. Is this a manifestation of emotional empathy or simply facade management? Does she have a moral compass attuned to justice for the undeserved, or is it simply done to make her look good? Is it the case that her loyalty to friends and clients is a means of asserting control, or is it evidence of emotional empathy? After Chuck McGill's death, in Smoke, she supports Jimmy emotionally, even as she grapples with her own role in exposing Chuck's electromagnetic hypersensitivity in court in Chicanery. Is this genuine remorse exhibiting emotional depth, or fake contrition, aligning with psychopathic shallowness? Kim's relationship with Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman, is the crux of her psychological evolution. Is it the case that she was a moral anchor that becomes corrupted to co-conspirator, or is it simply the case that he brought out traits that were there all along? They meet in 1993 at 8HM, bonding over shared underdog status, piñata. Initially, Kim tempers Jimmy's impulsivity. In Nacho, she warns him against associating with criminals like Nacho Varga, displaying protective concern. Their dynamic appears to be codependent, with Jimmy providing excitement and validation, while Kim offers stability and belief in his potential. As their romance deepens, Kim's psyche absorbs Jimmy's influence, awakening a latent thrill-seeking. In Switch, they execute their first joint con, posing as wealthy siblings to scam a stockbroker into buying expensive tequila. Kim's glee post-con, giggling in bed, reveals an addiction to the rush, which could be akin to the addiction to the thrill of recreational rule breaking. It might be demonstrative of codependency in an addictive relationship where one partner's behaviours enable and amplify the others. Their partnership escalates in Season 3, where Kim defends Jimmy at his bar hearing, Chicanery, cross-examining Chuck ruthlessly to expose his illness, a move blending loyalty towards Jimmy with strategic aggression towards Chuck. Post-hearing, what appears to be remorse surfaces. In Expenses, she confesses to Jimmy her guilt over contributing to Chuck's downfall. Is this simply a manipulative exercise in relation to Jimmy, or is it self-awareness and emotional empathy? By Season 4, marriage becomes a tool for protection, spousal privilege after Jimmy's cartel involvement. But also deepens their bond. Kim's initiative in schemes grows. She proposes the Howard plot in Season 5, episode Something Unforgivable, driven by resentment, a narcissistic trait, towards HHM's elitism and a desire for financial independence via the sandpaper settlement. This shift indicates how Jimmy's charisma erodes her boundaries. But is it the case that she still has agency? She appears to enjoy the intellectual challenges seen in her meticulous planning, reflecting a high cognitive empathy being used manipulatively. Interactions with others also provide us with insight. With Howard, initial respect turns to antagonism, punished with document review in Bingo. She resents his paternalism, which fuels later vengeance. Her confrontation with Lalo Salamanca in Bad Choice Road showcases fearlessness and loyalty, berating him for endangering Jimmy, a moment of perhaps raw empathy and courage. Mike Ehrmantraut recognizes her strength, confiding in her about Lalo in Rock and Hard Place. The relationship's toxicity peaks with Howard's murder in Plan and Execution, where Lalo kills him amid their scheme. Kim's horror and subsequent cover-up, faking normalcy at a memorial, reveals compartmentalization on her part. But her breakdown in Fun and Games, quitting law and leaving Jimmy, demonstrates what appears to be overwhelming remorse, underscoring her capacity for emotional depth. In Florida, her mundane life, Waterworks, reflects self-punishment, and confessing to Cheryl Hamlin appears to demonstrate accountability. Kim exhibits some ambition-related traits, but with regard to grandiosity, she has confidence in her abilities, as in pitching Mesa Verde in Cobbler, but it's earned, not exaggerated. She doesn't boast or expect unearned recognition. Fantasies of success appear in her 2-year plan for independence, but they're realistic goals rather than delusional. Kim resents HHM's elitism, but she doesn't claim innate superiority herself. Her drive stems from proving herself against odds, as per her background. Her need for admiration is minimal. She doesn't show a requirement at a pathological level for fuel. She does seek validation from Jimmy McGill, but she does thrive independently, quitting firms without fanfare. Entitlement does emerge mildly in the Howard scheme, as she feels justified in sabotaging him for past slights, but it's seen as revenge, a reaction, as opposed to pervasive entitlement. She does manipulate in cons showing exploitative behaviour, for instance, faking a mediator's bias, but exhibits remorse. She does display emotional empathy. She supports Jimmy through grief. She engages in pro bono work. She exhibits guilt over Chuck and Howard. Envy motivates the Howard plot, envying his privilege, but it's situational rather than chronic. Kim is not arrogant. She's assertive, not haughty. She repeatedly apologises when wrong, for instance, like to Paige after a mistake in Sabrosito. Kim Wexler demonstrates some entitlement and some envy, but she falls far short of being a narcissist. Her ambition is adaptive, rather than disordered. She's influenced by her upbringing, rather than being created by it. What about the consideration of psychopathy? The key factors, of course, are the pursuit of the necessary triad by way of control, accumulation, and stimulation. This involves interpersonal aspects of glibness, grandiosity, lying and manipulation, affective concerns, lack of remorse, shallow affect, callousness, failure to accept responsibility, lifestyle, parasitic, poor controls, impulsivity, and antisocial aspects, early problems, juvenile delinquency, revocation and versatility. Kim is articulate, but it's genuine. There's no glibness with her. It is not superficial charm. Her relationships are deep. Grandiosity is minimal, as previously mentioned. She does tell lies, but not habitually. Post-Howard, she confesses truthfully. With regard to an absence of remorse, she shows remorse. The horror at Howard's death, quitting law in guilt. Her tears, her anxiety attacks, post-crash, and love for Jimmy show depth. She aids the vulnerable consistently, which goes against callousness. She clearly has a need for stimulation, and this is evident in her con enjoyment, and she scores highly in that regard. Her impulsivity is low. She is a meticulous planner. She doesn't show a parasitic lifestyle. She's an independent earner. She maintains composure under stress, demonstrating good controls. She has early shoplifting exposure, which demonstrates an antisocial trait, but does not show criminal versatility. Her horror and remorse at violence go against psychopathic traits. She does exhibit slight traits by way of a need for stimulation and manipulation in context, but it's rather a case of she is more of a thrill-seeking personality than the out-and-out stimulation that is required as a consequence of the psychopath. Kim Wexler's moral arc in Better Call Saul provides us with more evidence and information. It's a descent from ethical integrity to complicity and harm, followed by redemption through self-imposed exile. Early seasons portray her as morally upright. In Pimento, she urges Jimmy to take the Sandpiper case legitimately, rejecting shortcuts. Her pro bono passion, like helping a client avoid eviction, in Mabel, highlights a justice-oriented ethic. Cracks, however, appear with Jimmy's influence. After securing Mesa Verde in Nailed, she learns Jimmy tampered with documents, but keeps silent. She prioritizes loyalty to him over ethics. a moral compromise showing relational bias. In other words, the presence of Jimmy McGill results in a kind of dirty streak being evidenced. This evolves into active participation. In Quite a Ride, she helps Jimmy sell burner phones, enjoying the subterfuge. Psychological views might see this as anxiety-driven. Overworked after a car crash in Lantern caused by exhaustion, she seeks then to regain control through the application of cons. The Howard scheme marks her nadir. Initiated, it involves DMT-laced photos to discredit him, culminating in his career ruin at the Sandpiper mediation. Kim's glee during planning, fist-pumping after successes, indicates thrill addiction. But her horror at Howard's death reveals unintended consequences. Wait. Post-trauma, in Point and Shoot, she faces Lalo's gun. Her defiance, do it, showing resilience but also despair. Remorse dominates her later arc. Quitting Schweikart and Coakley and surrendering her license in Fun and Games, she tells Jimmy, "I was having too much fun," admitting the scheme's allure. In Florida, her colourless life, monotonous job, bland relationships serves as penance. Her confession in Waterworks, signing an affidavit detailing the Howard plot, risks civil suits, demonstrating considerable moral accountability. Visiting Jimmy in prison, Saul gone, sharing a cigarette, she finds closure, her tears showing her enduring empathy. Kim Wexler is certainly a complex character. She falls short of the necessary traits to be found to be either narcissist or psychopath. In actual fact, she is an individual that has strong empathic traits, particularly with regard to moral compass, in relation to her need for justice, and also her compassion. There are repeated instances of this, and her emotional empathy for others manifests as a form of control, whereby she is meticulous and ensures that by having control she feels protected. The appearance of Jimmy McGill is an eroding factor in relation to being an external stressor upon her emotional empathy. Her behaviours deteriorate as a consequence of her active involvement, whereby her sense of resentment becomes corrupted by his presence. Her sense of justice similarly becomes corrupted by his presence, and she engages in behaviours which fly against her empathic traits and the presence of emotional empathy which has already been established. The necessity of thrill-seeking and the seeking of revenge against somebody that she sees as wronged her, Howard Hamlin, spirals out of control as a consequence of her loyalty and slavish devotion towards Jimmy. The fact that this is demonstrated as an aberration is shown by the penance that she exhibits afterwards, the monotonous lifestyle that she engages in, the confession that she shows, the fact that she signs an affidavit which could be problematic for her. All of this demonstrates a return of her emotional empathy, the lack of self-pity, and the resurrection of her moral compass. The fact is, Jimmy McGill acts as a disabling influence, both in terms of thrill addiction and the reduction of her emotional empathy. She is an individual that shows a susceptibility to the behaviours from an external stressor, more about him in due course, which will make further sense in relation to the finding that I make with regard to Kim Wexler. But ultimately, the finding is, in respect of Kim Wexler, is that she is an empath, an individual with considerable emotional empathy that's wide-ranging but susceptibility to external stressor, resulting in a nadir of behaviours and then a bounce back, reinforcing the presence of that moral authority and moral compass. That the early behaviours that she was exposed to in relation to her mother did not take her down the path of becoming a complete narcissist, but she started a journey there which then resulted in the creation of resilience, but a vulnerability to the presence of a narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.